also obsessed with what brands can do in sport. And we're really excited about really changing the narrative around what sponsorship actually can deliver for a business. And I'm going to talk about some of the relationships we're starting to build with brands and helping them really think about sponsorship differently. So there's 7 trends we're going to go through. What I will say is it's not all opinion. We're going to throw out some opinion, there's no doubt, and I'm very happy if people want to challenge our thinking on that. That's what it's all about. It is opinion. But also we do 2 significant studies through our global counterparts every year. One is Frontier, which is a review of sponsorship. It's a survey of over 400 marketers at different regions around the world, getting their opinion on the trends that they can see that are happening within sport and sponsorship generally. And then our US counterparts do a Decoding the Modern Sports Fan survey, probably once every 2 years. And that is really trying to understand and unlock what do fans want and what do fans want to see and receive from sponsorships and the sports that they're attached to. First and foremost, the great news for everybody in this room is sponsorship is growing. It's becoming, it's a pretty obvious statement, but when you see a lot of change happening in the broader advertising and media industry, it's a very good thing that sponsorship is seen and becoming more important, and brands and the like around the industry are prepared to tip more in, as they see it as a significant part of what they need to deliver for their brand and their business. So as of this year, global stats will say that we expect sponsorship to be worth $65 billion, and sport representing a significant chunk of that at $17 billion. Importantly, and this sort of highlights the point, 2 out of 3, and this came from our Frontier report, 2 out of 3 marketers believe sponsorship is a significant part of their overall integrated marketing strategy. It's not a separate operation or a separate strategy. It has to be fundamentally built in to the overall strategy of what they're trying to deliver for their brand or for a particular campaign. Not only that, sponsorship is not, I suppose, what it was traditionally. It's not just about exposure. It's not just about putting your logo on a shirt or a sign. It's actually much more meaningful if you get it right and you think about it a bit differently. So I'll use an example. We're working with Cadbury at the moment, and one of the new partnerships we've established with Cadbury is with the Hobart Hurricanes. Cadbury do not have a brand problem. Cadbury have a problem with staff and community engagement in Tasmania. And the Hobart Hurricanes become a platform for them, one, to show and demonstrate their commitment to their staff, the factory in Tassie, but also their commitment to the Tasmanian community or the Hobart community. Cadbury is there to stay. The business is transforming, but they're absolutely committed to Tasmania. The partnership is all about that. We'll get measures on exposure and everything else, but it does not matter. It's not what the partnership is all about. We've heard a lot about esports, and I definitely share Scott's sentiment. Get on board, right? Like it's there, it's massive, it's not for everyone. We know it's big. Our business ourselves is trying to figure out what it is, what role it is we play. We don't want to be too quick to jump into it. That all said, our view is there's still a massive education job with brands. The brands still know there's an opportunity. They've seen the reports that talk about how big it is, but there's no clear way of identifying where it is they should invest and why, and what that opportunity looks like. So we think it's absolutely massive, no doubt about that, but brands are a little bit unsure as to what they should be doing and why. We believe reward does lie in real commitment on both sides. Again, reinforces the point around how powerful a partnership can be. You have to understand their business. If you're going to be genuine about what role your property can play with a brand, you have to get underneath what that business is trying to achieve with the sponsorship they're looking at, and get beyond just offering up the assets you have to sell and just try and retrofit that into what you think they need. It has to be fundamentally based on the challenge and the solution you're trying to solve for them. And commitment is there both sides. So too much of 5-year contracts being developed, set and forget. Account service, you see some of the big rights holders, I'll use the AFL as an example, going away from setting up account teams to make sure a contract is executed to actually putting resource in place to become strategic advisors to those partners. That's the change we're seeing. It's not just about servicing a contract, it's actually about being a significant extension of their marketing team. One of the things that came out of the Decoding study, so this is US based, I actually think it would be a little bit different for us because I think we're actually a bit better in a lot of ways in terms of how brands use properties for sponsorship. But there's a decline. People's receptiveness to sponsors' messaging is declining. Pretty scary, right? But the opportunity actually, or the flip side of that, or what is the opportunity, is about who are more receptive. And all of a sudden we've got an opportunity to hit millennials. The one category marketers struggle to really communicate and engage with, sponsorship. The younger generation are more responsive to sponsors and brands involved in sport and entertainment. Lots of big clubs and sports have huge reach in social, and that's important for the reasons we just sort of talked about. But what's also important is around experiences. It's not just about reach, it's getting that balance right between reach and experience. Social is now the main platform. It has surpassed traditional TV. In terms of overall consumption, it's bigger. As a collective, it is bigger. So there's more emphasis on two things. One, what your strategy is around it, but two, how do you measure it? We're going to touch on that in a minute when we talk on return on investment. We think there's a massive gap in the market at the moment in terms of measuring all the value that is being created across social and digital. I don't think the industry's figured it out, and I don't think the existing players in measurement do a good enough job. So the solution is to get the balance right and think about your social strategy and experience strategy together. When it comes to live, fans still love everything that comes with live experiences. They love the free stuff. They love the sampling. They love the brand activation, sponsorship activation. But how do you bring those two together? That's the thinking. You can't just think about one or the other in isolation. We have to think about, one, the fit, why you're there. If you're just there talking about your brand, it doesn't have any relevance to that club or team or match day, then you need to question it. But then what's the digital overlay? How do you actually drive ongoing engagement? Lots of good examples of that going on, but it's definitely long-term what needs to continue. So again, it goes back to that integrated approach, bringing those real and digital worlds together and curating your messaging across the appropriate channels. Again, lots of content around women in sport. We agree, and we think there's a huge opportunity for brands and those operating in women's sport to really be genuine about getting behind female sport, because there's a huge opportunity for marketers and brands across the country. But it's not new, right? Women's sport is not new. Women's sport has been successful for a long time, but we've just seen in the last 2 years, it sort of hit the big time. One, in terms of awareness, but two, in terms of the market sort of starting to understand the opportunity. Sam Kerr, again, dominates against Chile the other night. The Matildas are selling tickets faster than the Socceroos. It's a really interesting dynamic, but if anyone watched that game against Chile, they were bloody exciting. And really, it's really exciting to see, and brands need to see it not as a token, not as a gesture around getting behind women's sport because it's the right thing to do. It's actually got a meaningful business proposition, and that's the shift that needs to change. We know there's also been a lot of talk about new players, new distribution channels for sport, new bidders in sport. Amazon have taken on some rights with the Premier League. I believe Facebook is working with Cristiano Ronaldo on a documentary series. Optus, complete failure over the World Cup. Foxtel launched their new streaming service, which by all reports is a great product and great experience. These, we know, everyone knows, I'm not trying to tell anyone anything they don't know, these companies are changing the game. But also, they're not production companies. So you still need the right people to produce sport in a high quality way. But it's going to be very interesting to see over time how they continue to evolve and change the industry. Here's my favourite one. So measuring ROI. We believe there's a significant gap in terms of the current measurement of sponsorship and measurement of sponsorship effectiveness. We believe there's about a 20% of value currently not being claimed by anybody when it comes to what is being delivered across digital and social channels. We believe the existing research companies do a high-level job of capturing what that value is, but we believe there's a huge amount of value being delivered that no one can validate. Companies like a business we brought this year, ClipDesk, is, our intent and ambition is to fix that. We'll build a program that delivers down to an individual the actual exposure that a piece of content, whether it's highlights, brand-funded content, sponsored content, what that piece of content, how far it's gone in terms of reach, how much it's been engaged with, has it been liked, has it been a hashtag, whatever it might be. What's the true value? Again, one of the big challenges I see in the industry that we've put up with for too long is just believing value that, to be honest, brands and sponsors don't. How many times I'm sure people in this room have talked about exposure value, and on the other end of the table, brands do not give a shit. They're just looking at relativity. So did I grow year on year? That's cool, that's one measure, but that cannot be our only currency in terms of measuring sponsorship effectiveness. We've relied on it too long and no one believes it. So something's got to give. So we're trying to play a role in helping better capture the total exposure matrix, but also go a bit deeper in terms of the currency and the value that's been applied. So we'll bring the front end of what is the value equation of CPM. We'll put that in the hands of a marketer. You tell us what CPM you put on a piece of content on Instagram, what's it worth? You put that input in, that will tell you the value, and then it's far more credible and believable versus an algorithm that sits behind a curtain that you can't really understand to help, or can't understand how they've arrived at a particular value. 19% of brands are actually confident they can actually measure the value of sponsorship. And that's really important because budgets are under pressure. So the ability for someone in a sponsorship role with a brand to be able to go to a CEO or a CMO, whoever that might be, and demonstrate and validate return on investment is becoming more and more important, but they don't have the arsenal. They don't have the ability to actually talk about the value return to the business from sponsorship because the industry doesn't provide them enough metrics. So we need to also understand the why and the strategic reasons as to why a particular brand partners with a particular code, and getting under the hood of what are those metrics or success measures that are going to make this a commercial success beyond just exposure. I mentioned, not every partnership is about exposure. It's still really important for a lot of brands, but increasingly, whether it is CSR, whether it's people and culture, there's lots of other metrics that brands are starting to see real value in what sponsorship can deliver. We need to be able to set those KPIs and metrics up front and build a way of measuring and agreeing on that before you actually set off and execute the partnership. Brands have to leverage all parts of what a property might offer and actually think about the role of each of those assets in each of those channels. Be very clear on what sponsorship objectives are. Get to this position of understanding what a true partnership is and thinking through strategies that actually will deliver real commercial impact to the brand invested, and also what might actually deliver against your strategic objectives as a code. Really important to have that conversation, very meaningful conversation before a proposal for a sponsorship is put in front of any brand. And then that will help inform understanding what true value of what your sponsorship investment might mean.